I don't know why we call our ministers the honorable, the honorable, the honorable minister, when we consider just how dishonorable so many of our ministers are. Thus, dishonorable is a far more accurate term, considering their level of corruption that they engage in. And right now, those charges of corruption are being levied against Randy Boissonnault. You see, Randy Boissonnault started a company back in 2019 after he lost his government seat. And his company dealt with medical supplies. It supplied medical gowns and what might have you to healthcare across the country. Well, of course, the country locked down, and all of a sudden, medical supplies was in an overwhelming demand. So, Mr. Boissonnault made a lot of money. He made a whole lot of money. But then, of course, he was elected back to Parliament. He was elected back to government a little while later. But wouldn't you know it, his name did not come off the list of directors. It was not removed from the list of his directors from his medical company. And oh, wouldn't you know it, it went on to secure $8.2 million in contracts. So now, dear Randy, who has accused so many of so much corruption, is being investigated. And others around him are being investigated as well. Here is a conversation between Conservatives and Minister Boissonnault's former business partner, Stephen Anderson. Let's hear what he had to say.
It was reported in the original reports that the other Randy was the head of logistics. There was a head of logistics. Do you recall that? You ambiguously admitted to working with another Randy, identified only as the head of logistics. Is that correct?
That is the story. That is what was
That
published.
is the story.
Yes. That is what was published. Yes.
That is the story. Is that what you said?
I was contacted by a blocked phone number. This is probably June. I'm not sure of the exact date. I was contacted by someone calling and asking me, is Randy there? I said, no. They went on to say, does Randy Boissonnault work at the operation? I said, no, they don't. They identified as Kristen Poon, or sorry, not Kristen Poon, as Krista Hesse from Global News. I admit that I did panic when she said, is there another Randy?
So you lied?
To the reporter, I did, yeah.
So he lied. Okay, so right now there is a conversation being had about conversations had between this man here, this former associate of, or apparently the former associate, Stephen Anderson, of Randy Boissonnault. He's the one who also founded this medical company. And some conversations that were being had with another Randy. Because obviously, if this individual was having business conversations with Randy Boissonnault, after Randy Boissonnault was elected to Parliament once again, then Boissonnault would have been engaging in the most egregious of ethics violations. But Anderson and others are saying, no. The Randy, quote unquote, Randy that I was having conversations with was in fact a different Randy. It was a different Randy. Who was it? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But nevertheless.
So I appreciate that. I actually do. Maybe it's the first truth I've heard today. I do appreciate that. And I say that because that is a far leap from an autocorrect. So you're now admitting on the record, it's important you do that, by the way, because you do have to respect the standing orders of the House of Commons when asked direct questions, that in fact, there was no other Randy of logistics. Now your testimony has changed. Now your testimony is that it was an autocorrect. Is the autocorrect still listing a head of logistics, or have we determined that in fact, there is no head of logistics, or that they weren't involved in that conversation?
So if you're referring to, was I talking about Randy Boissonnault?
It's not what I asked. I'll ask you directly. Who's responsible for the head of logistics?
Edward.
Edward. Far cry from Randy.
Yes.
Okay. When you flip back and forth between GHI is the partnership 50-50 that you had with Mr. Boissonnault, correct?
Correct.
And the nature of that corporation, was that broken down into shares?
It was.
So when it dissolved, how did that dissolution of the corporation or dissolution of Mr. Boissonnault's shares happen?
So the company is not dissolved.
How did Mr. Boissonnault step away financially from the organization. Did you pay him out?
No.
This is a $35 million revenue company. He was making 200 and a quarter a year. It's your testimony that he walked without any financial compensation?
No. Randy Boissonnault's involvement in global health imports, to my understanding, is that his portion of his ownership was moved into a trust or
So he still owns.
So nobody knows here, right? Like no one, all of a sudden, no one can take responsibility. No one knows exactly how Randy Boissonnault exited the company when he took his position as MP. No one has a clue, not even the co-founder of this global health imports. He doesn't know. Apparently Boissonnault seems to not know. Wow, strange.
Randy is not operational in the business,
But he still
I
owns.
did not buy him out, if that's what you're testing.
Correct.
So Randy Boissonnault then goes to government. He takes his position as an MP in the federal government, and yet he is not bought out. His shares in this company that he co-founded still exist, apparently. He wasn't bought out, so he still owns part of the company. Now, maybe you and I are being a little bit over concerned, but it sounds to us like that's probably a conflict of interest. Yeah, it's probably a conflict of interest to have a member of parliament own a company during his time as a member of parliament. Seems like that might constitute insider information. That might constitute a conflict of interest. That might not be ethical, which is so strange because, of course, it's coming from the Liberal government side. And the Liberals are known for being, so ethical.
You, sir.
Here's what Michael Barrett said. Let's take a listen here.
You, sir, are the person who said Randy's name. Is it your testimony today that how many times do you say it? 9 references to Randy? Every one of those 9 is an autocorrect?
Yes. Randy Boissonnault was not involved with our operation or in any business relation after September of 2021.
Well, you certainly have said 2 different things. So were you lying then, or are you lying now?
I am not lying in regard to Randy not being involved with the business after September of 2021.
I don't believe you. So we'll just get that out of the way because your story doesn't add up. So we have the reference in the text message of your 121 person company, and you talk about Shauna, Felix, and Randy. So you can tell us who Shauna is, you can tell us who Felix is, but you can't tell us who Randy is, or you won't tell us who Randy is.
Of course, everyone knows who Randy is. There's no question about this, but nevertheless.
That's because it's Randy Boissonnault. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, no, it is not correct. And I will go on to say that I will not tell the person's name simply because Shauna Parker and Felix Papineau, after everything that has happened, they are in the same litigation that we are involved in as employees of the organization by this particular individual.
How convenient. Wow. So convenient. Yeah. What a coincidence. Unbelievable. Incredible. Wow.
Sir, just so you're aware, it's not your choice whether or not to answer the question. So you must answer the question fully and truthfully.
Mr. Barrett, I am being truthful.
Or not answering the question, which you are not doing, is a contempt of this committee. And there are consequences for contempt. So you have an opportunity today to clear the air and to say who the other Randy is. But the reason you're not saying it is because it's Randy Boissonnault. Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, no, that is not correct. And as I have said, I will fulsomely give you all the information in regard to Randy, to this committee, within camera.
Sir, you had a deadline in June to provide.
Okay, so he actually won't do that, right? Because he's not doing it. This is such nonsense, right? The Liberal government is corrupt. We don't even need to see any more of this ethics investigation. And the tragic thing is, as it stands right now, looking at the way history works, looking at the way this federal government works, even if Randy Boissonnault is convicted here of engaging in unethical practices, what's going to happen? Like, look at our government, right? Look at how our government acts. Look at how Trudeau acts. They engage in unethical actions all the time, and yet what consequences arise? It's nonsense. There is no justice in this regard. Justice is coming. Justice is coming when Almighty comes back. Absolutely. And when he does, none of those government ministers, none of those government members will escape, as they are so apt to do right now. Almighty is coming. And when he does, he will judge as all men are meant to be judged. Absolutely. Nevertheless, the scandals in the Liberal government continue to increase. The corruption in the Liberal government continues to be unveiled for all of us to see.